Welcome to Dave Examines Movies and TV. Today, I find my inner child to examine 2016's big children hit, Trolls. Do kids really know what they're talking about, though? Is this actually good? Or is it like Merv says in Home Alone, they're a kid. Kids are stupid. Hey, I'm Dave, and I created DaveExaminesMovies.com. I've been reviewing movies for over 10 years, and I believe I've discovered the ultimate method for reviewing film. I've always used a 1 out of 100 star rating, but somehow that was still too biased and inaccurate for my tastes. I wanted something so unquestionable that even if you hated something that I love, you could appreciate my logic as well. I call it interpreting the stars, which splits a movie into 10 categories. 5 solid categories that fit any movie, and 5 solid categories that created specifically for the movie in question. The first 5 categories are people, writing, behind the scenes, narrative arc, and overall entertainment. Each of these categories will have 5 subcategories of their own that ultimately define the star rating of the film. You'll no longer have to ask why a film is rated 76% versus 77. You'll now know what each and every star represents. This is Dave Examines Movies and TV. Hello, how's everyone doing today? Pretty good. It's funny, I kind of stumbled over my words there for a second. So I told you in the last review that I did have a little funny story about this Trolls movie, and that is, I've seen it quite a few times. It's actually my kid's favorite movie of all time, and I know that's kind of weird saying because he's not even 2 years old, but he knows this movie, by heart. We'll be scrolling through hundreds of other movies trying to figure out something to watch, and he will spot it out of the bunch, and he will say, Poppy, or I think he says Boppy, but he's talking about Poppy because that's the character's name in the movie, Princess Poppy. And so he'll point it out, and he'll have a fit if we don't watch it. So to say that we've seen it many times is actually understating the fact. We've seen it many times. So yeah, we had to actually buy the movie because renting it a million times would be ridiculous. We had to buy it. It was his Valentine's Day gift, I think it was. So we got that for him, and he's super happy because he sees it all the time, at least once a week, but it's probably more than that, to be honest. And the funny thing about that is, I've seen it so many times, and I never watched it all the way through. It was always him watching it. I'd glance up here and there, and every single time I'd watch it, I would see something new, something different that I didn't see before. So I'd be watching, I'd be like, wait, did that happen last time? Did they add something new this time that I was watching it? So I thought, this next time that he is just begging to watch it, I go ahead and sit there with him and watch the whole thing and give it a review, because, why not? Kids' movies are still good, aren't they? I was never really interested in it, though. It didn't look like a movie when it was previewed that I'd be interested in. Yeah, Trolls were, those toys that we had as kids. They'd be sitting next to the climbing monkey toy things and the building blocks and the things like that. They're just those random things that weren't brand named. They were just the troll toys. So to see a movie about it seemed weird. I didn't really know what to expect when going into it the first time, but I saw it, and it's not actually that bad. Before we get into it, I was going to say, so I was on Facebook. I'm into a bunch of these cinema discussion Facebook pages, and one of the questions they had today was, what's the best way to rate films? It was a multi-answer thing. And the answers there were out of 10, out of 5, out of 4, and out of 100. The one that's winning by a landslide is 1 out of 10. And the one that's actually losing is 1 out of 100, which is what I do. And one of the comments, they said, I don't even understand what you could be thinking with rating something out of 100. So I kind of had to chime in and say, I rate things out of 100, and I explain what every point or star represents. And then I kind of gave them a quick rundown, and they said, "Oh my gosh, that's a exact science." And I'm like, yeah, I didn't always start that way though. I started like everybody else. I said a movie is either good or bad, but I couldn't really tell them exactly why, and I always wanted to be more precise. So anyways, so we're reviewing Trolls. What is it about? Well, IMDb says, quote unquote, after the Bergens invade Troll Village, Poppy and the happiest troll ever born. Poppy is the happiest troll ever born, and the curmudgeonly branch set off on a journey to rescue her friends. That's basically it. To give you an idea of what the Bergens are, they are more or less the idea of what you see in your mind when you say trolls. They are the ugly doofuses that are just cranky all the time. So the Bergens are actually what I would consider a troll, because the trolls in this are like the happy, singing, sing-song, magical creatures, and that's basically what they are. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to get into the rating here. First category is people, which goes into the acting, the characters, the casting, its importance, and chemistry, of course, as always. First one's acting. I would say that there's quite a big range, I think, of acting in this, as you wouldn't expect. But, I mean, you got your happy emotions, you got your sad emotions, and, of course, you have your emotions that come out when you're singing. And I think, and there's a variety of different kind of songs as well. So when it comes to the acting, I think it's actually pretty good for this movie. Animated, it's always questionable on if it's good or not, but I think for the most part, it is a good show of acting ability there. I will give it 2 out of 2 stars for that. Next up is characters. This movie, and most animated movies, to be completely honest, are all about characters and how diverse they are and how they all are just different and memorable, and that's what they tried to do here. Even with the Bergens, they had memorable Bergens. They had a bunch of trolls that were memorable. It's hard not to give this on 2 out of 2 stars as well. Next one is casting. Did they pick all the right people to play these parts? You know, it's hard to say, but I think with the help of actors that are also singers, you could very much notice that it worked very well for who's playing these characters. And I think the casting did a pretty good job here, because you could tell who was there by their voice, but you could also tell that they added a lot to it because of their singy-songy voices. So 2 out of 2 stars for casting. The next one's importance. Does every single character play a part? Do their roles help with the plot? The answer to that is a pretty much resounding no. The main characters are clearly Princess Poppy, who goes to save the rest of the trolls from the Bergens, and accompanying her is Branch, who's played by Justin Timberlake. These two are the main good guys, and the main bad guys, or the main Bergens, are played by Zoe Deschanel, who plays Bridget, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse, or whatever you call him, as King Gristle. You could probably say the chef is also pretty important, but the rest of the characters are pretty flat. They are there for comedic purposes only, in my opinion, especially most of the trolls. I was a little disappointed about how non-important most of the trolls were in this movie. They're just kind of there to show that they have different gifts, different abilities, but as far as their point to the plot, they're just background for the most part. So for importance, I give it 1 out of 2 stars, because some did have importance, but most of them really didn't. As far as the chemistry is concerned, how does everybody work well together? Well, it's hard to say sometimes, but I think everybody mostly had a pretty decent chemistry with one another. I didn't see one character that didn't really belong or didn't work well with other people. So as far as that's concerned, we'll just give it a nice 2 out of 2 stars as usual, which actually makes the people category pretty high on the list for for the score. The people score right now is 9, so 9 out of 10 possible stars, so we're off on a very good start, but will it keep up? Next up is the writing score. And in the writing, of course, we have the dialogue, the balance, how balanced it is, the story itself, originality, and is it interesting? So let's get into that. When it comes to the dialogue, it's hard to say because yes, there is some good dialogue there. There's a lot more singing in that, and I don't know if I should consider the singing part of the dialogue. But at the same time, it's a musical, so they sing what they feel, they sing what their conversations are. And in my opinion, that's part of the dialogue. And I have to give that 2 out of 2 stars for that, because it tells a very unique story. I'll get to that in a second for the story. The balance. Is it balanced? Can we understand what's going on? As adults, I think we have a very clear understanding of what's going on. But as a kid, I'm not sure, because they kind of do a bunch of different things that don't make sense. Especially a big segment in this movie is simply a Cinderella story. They get to the Birkins town, and for some reason or other, they pull off this big Cinderella thing where they have to get Bridget to look pretty for the king and all this stuff. And as far as the main plot of saving the trolls and doing this and that, it's a little over the top, and I think it drags the story out a little bit too long. And I consider that an imbalance, and I think that hurt it a little bit. It's an interesting Cinderella story, but other than that, it wasn't super needed. So for that, I will have to say 1 out of 2 stars for balance. The story. Does it have a good story? I would say yes. Obviously, it's the, adventure story to get from point A to point B, but it's also a good story to tell to your kids that I haven't really seen in anything before that I can think of right off the head. And that is, it's a story about dependence. It's about, or false dependence rather, about how we have a tendency to depend on somebody else or something else to provide our happiness with. It's like we don't have enough independence or self-awareness rather to know what to do to make ourselves happy. We don't know what makes us happy. For some people, that may mean like in Trolls, they depend on somebody else to make them happy. So like a spouse or a friend or even a parent or whatever. They can't be happy on their own. They need that person. Or it can even go deeper and darker than that and say somebody needs drugs to make them happy or things like that. This tells a pretty good story in my opinion. I mean, it's even closer to drugs because they need to consume these things to feel happy. So that's what I saw right offhand. I don't know if anybody else did, but I was like, dang, if you take this in the right light, it can actually be pretty important. But I don't know if I'm just completely winging it there, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but it was interesting. Originality, like I said, for the most part, it's not, because you have an adventure to get from point A to point B, which isn't really super original. It's what they fill it with that's supposed to be original, and what they fill it with, like I said, most of it was that Cinderella thing. And because of that, it was a little disappointing. They could have gone so many different ways to tell their story, and they decided Cinderella was the best option. I don't think it was. I think that made it less great. So again, originality, 1 out of 2 stars. It could have been better. Last but not least, for the writing scores, we have, was it interesting? For me, I think it was. And for kids, I definitely know it was, given how my kid likes to watch it like 30 times. It's interesting because as adults, we have nostalgia having toys that were trolls. I mean, kids these days don't have those, so it's weird, right? Kids these days don't have Trolls toys that you get all the time, but they are interested in this movie called Trolls, which are based off of those troll toys that the parents had. It's odd, but it's also interesting because parents can enjoy this movie too. So it's interesting for parents and for kids. I'll get into that later with the specialty categories, but for now, just know that I do consider this interesting. So 2 out of 2 stars for that. That brings the writing score up to 8 out of 10 possible stars. That's not too bad at all. We're up to 17 out of 20. Still pretty good. But can it stay up there? Next category is BTS, behind the scenes. And of course, those categories there have to deal with the visuals, the directing, the editing, the advertisement, and the music. Okay, so let's talk about behind the scenes. Does it fare well? The visuals. This is an animated movie. It's not Pixar, but it is DreamWorks. And DreamWorks is pretty much right up there next to Pixar as far as visuals and animation goes. It's a very pretty, very bright, very colorful movie. Lots of different, interesting, unique variations to the character models and things like that. It doesn't try to look realistic visually. It tries to still be cartoony, cartoony CGI-ish. For what it's trying to do, it does a really good job. It does look how it's supposed to. It does look unique and fresh and all these different things that kids love. I would say 2 out of 2 stars for the visuals, but that was pretty much guaranteed before watching. But this just makes it double for me. The directing. It's a kids movie and it's animated. I don't think a director really had much hard work to do when going into this. I think they saw a pretty clear story to follow. When you're talking about a kids movie, it's kind of point by point by point. And I don't think a director really had much to worry about here. Plus, like I've said before in other CGI reviews, directing is kind of different when it comes to animated films because they're not there on set figuring out what to do. For this, I can only imagine them trying to tell animators how they want it to be done, and I mean, it's really the animator's job to do it, and that's more visuals. So with the directing, I would say 1 out of 2 stars. Editing as well. Nothing really surprised me as far as the editing. There's some nice little shots here and there, but nothing too complex, nothing too surprising or noticeable, so I give editing 1 out of 2 stars as well. As far as the advertisement, I think it was as advertised. I don't think it lied to us in any way. And I think it got kids' attention just like the movie does, so I give it 2 out of 2 stars for advertisement. As far as the music's concerned, this is the score that I normally give 1 out of 2 stars because nothing is really, ever noticeable. Nothing's memorable. Nothing's anything like that. When it comes to music, and when I give it a 2 out of 2 stars, it's because I could see myself buying the, soundtrack or the score as is because I want to hear just that portion. A lot of musicals have that for very obvious reasons. This is a musical, and the music actually surprised me in this because it's mostly covers, a couple of originals, but the arrangements and everything sound pretty good and are fun to listen to, so I would say the music is 2 out of 2 stars. So that brings the scoring up to 8 out of 10 for behind the scenes. So last time we were 17. We're at 25 now out of 30. Not too bad, not too shabby. The next category we talk about is the narrative arc score. I like to tell you this in every review. The narrative arc is important. It is talking about things you might not even think about when watching a movie that feel off because it's missing. Okay? It needs to have these things or you're going to be like, what was missing? I know something was missing. Never mind. those things. Okay, so narrative arc goes through the introduction, the inciting incident and crossing of the threshold, the obstacles, the epiphany moment and climax and falling action. The introduction for Trolls introduced us to both the Bergens. It introduced us to most of the Trolls, if not all, and why the Trolls are important to the Bergens, why the Trolls are afraid of the Bergens, and why the Trolls are kind of stupid when you think about it, and they keep on making noise when they shouldn't. That's the introduction. For the most part, it's completely fine, completely perfect. 2 out of 2 stars for that. The inciting incident is when the Trolls, like I said, are stupid, like really, really dumb and not intelligent whatsoever. They throw a party, a really loud and explosive party, and they're not that far away from the Bergens. And so the Bergens notice it, and then they go to the troll village and, steal some of the trolls away. The crossing of the threshold is when Princess Poppy decides to go on a rescue mission along with Branch. So that's completely obvious. I give that 2 out of 2 stars as well. That is there. That is clear. Obstacles, it's a kids movie, so you got bad guys running amok as well. But really, it was a weird one because the obstacles had more to do with that Cinderella story and making sure the Bridget Bergen was all, pretty and Cinderella-y. I'm not going to comment on that any further, but I will say the obstacles are there. Whatever. 2 out of 2 stars. Climax and the epiphany moment. Okay. I don't like to spoil this part because it gives away most things, but I will say that there is both a very clear epiphany moment and a very clear climax to this movie. It's hard to miss. So we will skip saying that, just say that it is 2 out of 2 stars. Falling action, there is none. This has the most problem, I think, in movies is the falling action. They like to have this big, explosive ending or climax and just, end on a bang. And the problem with that is there is no returning to the norm, which is really important for stories. So there is 0 out of 2 stars for the falling action because they're just plain and simple. There is none. So the narrative arc score was 8 out of 10. So, it's still pretty good. We're at 25 and then 33 out of 40. 33 out of 40 so far. All right. Next up is the category of how entertaining it is. I'm sure for my son, it is 10 out of 10 for the entertainment. He doesn't care what those subcategories are, but I do. The subcategories are rewatchability, fun, impulse to buy it, impulse to talk about it, and does it suck the audience in? For my kid, again, rewatchability. Oh yeah, he's rewatched it a million times. For me, I'm like, all right, I'll probably have to rewatch it because my kid's doing it, but do I want to is the question. I don't know. I don't really want to. I could see myself rewatching if I was flipping through some channels or something, but other than that, not really. So if that's more of a maybe, I'm going to give it 1 out of 2 stars. Is it fun? Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for a kid. It's fun for adults, too. The music is the most fun thing for adults, but there's also some other stuff in there for adults as well. But as far as kids, oh yeah, all the way. 2 out of 2 stars for how fun it is. Do you have an impulse to buy it? Well, I bought it. I didn't have an impulse to buy it for myself, but I did have an impulse to buy it for my kid. I think a lot of parents probably do as well. So it's a weird one. Adults would buy it for their kids, but not so much for themselves. So I'm going to say 1 out of 2 stars for that. An impulse to talk about it? No. Oh, sorry. Impulse to buy, 1 out of 2 stars. I don't know if I said that. Impulse to talk about it? Not really. I don't have an impulse to talk about with anybody. My kid doesn't care to talk about it. He'd mostly just rewind it, and start it over again. So as far as that's considered, 0 out of 2 stars for talking about it. Does it suck the audience in? I think it sucks the audience in for anybody. I mean, it's not a super important movie. It's not going to really win any Oscars, I don't think. But it's a fun movie, and that funness is what sucks the audience in. For the most part, you like how they sing, and you want to know what happens anyways, even though you're not super invested anyways. But, hey, it is what it is. I give that 2 out of 2 stars. The entertainment score turns out to be the lowest one out of the bunch, and that's 6 out of 10. So, where were we? 33, and then we're up to 6, so a 39 out of 50. And that's for the first 5 categories. As we all know, the next 5 categories are the specialty ones that I wrote before watching it, or watching it all the way through, I should say. Some questions I had, some expectations I had, whatever. The first one is, like I've been saying a couple times throughout this review, the variation between, is it completely a children's movie made only for kids, or is it made for the family so the adults can enjoy it too? That's the one thing I wanted to know when watching through it. Because I don't like when I'm here watching it with my kid and he's the only one enjoying it and I'm bored, you know? No parent wants that, especially if they have to go to the theater to see it. So that's my question. The answer to that is yes. Not only is the music enjoyable for adults, because it's basically what you hear on your pop station, but the music is nowadays stuff, and they use some more not classic, but older songs as well. They don't just stick to today's music, they just kind of use the music that fits, and it works rather well. The music's good for a family. Not only that, but I'm also looking for innuendo stuff when you're an adult watching kids movies. The innuendo stuff is stuff that only adults notice and kids just laugh at but have no idea what they're actually talking about. They do have those moments in here, and I'm glad they did. That's the stuff for the adults, and it was completely satisfactory, I guess you could say it. So as far as that specialty category, 10 out of 10 stars, no problem there. The next one is, it looks like a funny movie. I mean, it's a kid's movie, so wouldn't it be funny? Yeah, obviously got a lot of physical humor stuff, a lot of visually humorous looking material. Kids love it, obviously, and I did chuckle here and there, so I'll go ahead and say it's got 10 out of 10 for the comedy. Nothing wrong there, I don't think. It's not the funniest movie in the world, but that's not what I'm reviewing. I'm saying the comedy is there, 10 out of 10. Next one is nostalgia, right? Because I have nostalgia because I played with these troll toy things when I was a kid, and I wanted to see if that could bring me back to my childhood and make me remember about them. The real answer to that is no. Right? There's no real nostalgia. I didn't have the nostalgia while watching. I mean, they look like the trolls, sort of, when you played with them. Especially, like, in the very beginning, there was a shout-out to the toys because it looked like one of the older ones. But that was it. The rest of the movie was its own thing, so I will say nostalgia 0 out of 10 stars. The next one is, you expect a moral of the story. Because it's a kid's movie. And I did mention this before in the story section about dependence and discovering your self-awareness and, finding out what it is that makes you a happy person and going with it. And that's what this movie is all about. It's also about leadership and how much you mean to others, even though you might not realize it, and that affects you, it affects everybody around you. It's really important stuff. I don't know if anybody's going to really notice this while watching, but it was pretty much obvious to me. And I thought that was pretty clever. I thought it was pretty unique. And so for the moral of the story, I have to say 10 out of 10 stars. The last one is one I use all the time for these specialty questions, and is it halfway decent? Could I change it to make it any better? And I honestly can't say I could make it any better. I think it is halfway decent, and I think they did a great job. I'm wondering if they're going to make a sequel, but knowing today's day and age, what doesn't get a sequel now? So I would say 10 out of 10 for the halfway decent one as well. That brings the total specialty categories up to 40 out of 50 stars. So our main total is 79 out of 100 possible stars. That's the score, 79%. That obviously gets rounded up to 8, or if you're out of 5, it rounds up to 4. So take that as you will. That's basically 80%, but it's 79. It's not a bad movie. It honestly is okay. It's better than I expected. I mean, it's not the best animated movie in the world. I have my choices for that, but it's not bad. I think critics have painted it to be worse than it is, and it's really not fair for them to be saying that, because it's not true. I'm not angry that we have bought it, and it doesn't bug me every time I watch it either. So that was the Trolls movie. So if you're a parent, go check it out. Your kid's probably going to thank you for it, and everything like that. As I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, but I want to mention it again, I am on Tracked.tv, and this is the website that I track all of my viewings of all the movies and TV shows that I watch in my life. And if you can add me as a friend and then track your own TV shows and your own movies on there, and it'll tell you how much of your life you have spent wasting on TV and movies, which, like it says for me, of all time, I've spent 404 days watching TV shows, and I have spent 131 days watching movies. That's quite a bit of life spent. That's more than like a year and a half or something like that. So pretty cool there. Add me on there, and we can just kind of compare how much of our life we've wasted or whatever. Also, you can contact me on Twitter for IAMDWG. That's IAMDWG on Twitter. You can check me out on Facebook, Dave Examines Movies. Go to my website, Dave at DaveExaminesMovies.com. Email me at DaveExaminesMovies.com. Give me a comment on here. Follow me. And subscribe to me and things like that, because I am on every podcast server out there: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Podcast. I'm everywhere. I'm just everywhere. So follow me on there. Give me a shout out. And I'm totally welcome to hearing some suggestions on what to review next. I'm always looking for those, and I like to hear from my fans. So, in case you have anything to add, no? All right. I will see you next time. This is the end of the week, so I will be gone for the weekend. I don't do my reviews on the weekends or anything. But I will tell you that what is my next review? Let's see. I'll tell you. Give me a second. I can find this out also on Tracked. Alright, I just did Trolls. Where's Trolls? And then the next one I would be doing is possibly Yumi and Dupree. Let me see. Movies. Guess I didn't check this before I did the review, huh? Alright, so on Monday you can expect a review of Yumi and Dupree. Tuesday I'll be doing TV Tuesday. Check with me again on Monday to figure out what I'm going to be doing on TV Tuesday when I make the decision. On Wednesday I will be reviewing Sunshine, which was a 2007 movie, I think. Thursday I'll be reviewing The Adjustment Bureau. And I don't know what I'll be reviewing Friday yet, because I haven't seen that much yet in advance. But I will be reviewing those in order. So Yumi and Dupree, TV Tuesday, Sunshine, Adjustment Bureau. But I'll let you know what Friday will be when I figure that out. So thank you for joining me at Dave Examines Movies and TV. I guess I'll see you guys next week then. Peace out.